Hey, and welcome to episode number 147 of The Brave Widow Show. Today, I'm going to talk about how I rebuilt my life after loss and how real estate was the teacher. But this episode isn't just about real estate, it's about the messy, beautiful journey of rebuilding a life after everything changes. Now, you might have heard me talk about becoming a real estate investor on the Brave Widow show before, and I had something a little exciting that happened last week that really opened my eyes into how this whole journey into real estate investing has been almost a parallel experience to my journey through grief and to navigating this new life in widowhood. So I wanted to share some examples with you. Sometimes widows may look at me and think, oh, look at her. Good for her. She's in a better spot now. That must have been so easy. Like she was so confident in where she is now, and she must have just known every step to take, known every path that was before her. But the reality is that I am here talking to you today. I am the creator of Brave Widow today because I didn't have what I wanted or needed or could have used. I've created a coaching program and my group program to be exactly what I would have wanted and needed when I was going through those first few months, first few years of being a widow and just trying to figure it out. The value of coaching so much is having a guide to let you know, yes, this is normal. No, this is not normal. Here's how to think about these things. Here's what we want to do to take the next step to move forward. Yes, this is part of the journey. Like having someone to guide you through the process is a really priceless, luxurious, amazing gift that you can give yourself as part of the journey of widowhood. And I wish that I really would have had an experienced widow, experienced in life coaching, experienced in grief to help guide me and just navigate this whole process. When you hear the things that I talk about or the way that I talk about them, don't think for 1 second that I knew where one step was going to lead to the next, or that I had someone guiding me, or that I even knew that any path was going anywhere. I didn't know. I often talk about the journey of widowhood being like walking through a trail in a forest. You can't see around the corner. You don't know what's on the other side. You don't know if this new thing you're trying is going to go anywhere, but you step forward in blind faith anyway. That is part of the journey. Becoming the type of person who does that is part of the journey in navigating grief and rebuilding your life. All right, so let's dive into what we have for today. I didn't wake up one day and just decide to be a real estate investor or a widow, but both of those things found me and both became part of how I found myself again. Real estate has given me something tangible to build when my life felt like it was shattered and completely over. So, let me share with you my journey through real estate investing and some of the exciting news that happened last week. If you don't already know, I'm not spoiling it. You're going to have to listen to this episode or fast forward to the end. Did I just say fast forward? I meant skip ahead to the end. Okay, I feel old now. All right. Real estate is investing is something I was always interested in for much of my adult life, but I never really knew how that would ever work out for me. Like it just seemed almost impossible. Either as an investor, you'd have to be up to your eyeballs in debt and it would be super risky, or you had to be wealthy and be able to invest a lot of money. It just really seemed out of reach for me, or something that would take a lot of time. And in my career as a healthcare executive, I just didn't have a lot of free time to be learning about these things. But I can remember early, even in my 20s, back when forums were a big thing online, that I would sit around and I would read about real estate investing and all of people's horror stories. And I got on this rabbit trail about owning mobile home parks. And so that was something I dove into for a while. But it was just, there was something about it that was just always intriguing to me. And I remember it was May of 2022. It had been just under a year after Nathan died. And I was looking online for just local events and meetups and things that I could do to start trying to figure out what I might want to do in my future. And I saw that there was this group that did real estate investor meetings. And I thought, okay, why not? Something I've wanted to learn about. I very much was taking a student approach to this, but I also was pretty intimidated because I looked at that as this is a real estate investor meeting and I'm not an investor. I don't even know if I can be an investor. I don't really have a lot of free time. I was still working full time, more than full time, traveling a lot for work. A lot of things were happening around this time. And so I remember I drove in my pickup truck to the first meeting because I wanted to look. This is so funny. I normally drive a Suburban, but I also had bought a work truck to use out on my property. Tree branches are always falling. There's always something going on. I was like, I need a truck. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to look like a real investor, and investors probably drive trucks. So this is where my mind is, okay? I go to this first meeting. Now, keep in mind, I don't know anyone there. I'm going alone. I remember exactly where I was parked, what building this meeting was held in. I park outside and I sit in the parking lot for 20 minutes. I got there super early. I sit in the parking lot for 20 minutes because I was so afraid to walk in. I was just hyper aware of the clothes I was wearing, of how my hair was, of carrying a notebook and a pen in there, of what jewelry I had on. Like my nervous system was still pretty much on fire at this point. So I was hyper aware and self-conscious of every little thing. And so I remember having these thoughts before this first meeting of, I don't know anyone in there. Are people going to be nice to me? What if they look down on me because I'm not an investor? I don't know anything really about real estate investing other than what I had picked up on these free forums 20 years ago. I don't even know where the bathrooms are. Okay. I'm sure there's probably bathrooms in there. I don't know why I was so obsessed with that, but those were all the thoughts that were just swirling. What if no one's nice? What if no one talks to me? What if everyone thinks that I shouldn't be there? And all the what ifs, okay? So when you find yourself thinking about doing coaching for the first time or thinking about doing anything new for the first time, all of those what ifs are incredibly normal. So I sat out there for 20 minutes. I was so close. I remember just feeling defeated. Oh, this is a waste of time. What am I even doing here? Who am I to think that I could be a real estate investor? I almost drove away. I almost drove away. Instead, I walked inside. I walked inside. There was forced networking, which for me and for other introverts, that's like the worst. Forced networking, talking to other people, talking about if you're thinking about being an investor, if you are an investor. And I was like just sweating just thinking about it when I walked in there. But the experience was so amazing. And this is one thing I tell widows all the time is that when we think about doing something for the first time, our brain tells us all of the worst things that could happen. Our brain never tells us, like, what if this was the best thing that could ever happen for you? So here I am at this first meeting, so afraid to go inside because I'm so afraid this might be the worst thing that ever happened to me. I might be so embarrassed to walk in, and actually it ended up being one of the best things that I ever did. When I was forced to do this networking and talk to other people, I got to meet some really great people and people I'm still friends with to this day, almost 3 years later, people that are still mentors to me in real estate investing, but I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know any of these people. So I'm talking, meet some nice people. There's open Q&A. There's a lot of mentors and people there. And what I loved so much about this group was there's 25 different ways to be a real estate investor, probably more. And everyone in the group had their opinion on why they invested the way that they did, but they also encourage you to come up with what's going to work best for you. And they were open to sharing their failures, they were open to sharing their experiences, and they were open to brainstorming with you of what might be the best solution for you. September of 2022, I bought my first property. It's a tiny little house. We call it lovingly the White House because it's white. It's a little white house on the main street of my small town. And I bought this little white house. It was in terrible condition. It wasn't a great financial decision. It wasn't like I got this house for a steal and it needed a ton of work. But I loved it because it was 2 blocks away from my kids' school. At the time, I lived 15 to 20 minutes outside of town. In my mind, I was like, hey, I could invest in this property. I could maybe use it as my office. And after school, my kids could just walk to the office. We could do our thing, take them to their after school activities. Just logistically, it was something I wanted to do. I knew it needed a lot of work. I didn't realize exactly how much work it would need, but I was willing to take a risk without having full clarity. So, as we're walking through our journey as a widow, we're navigating grief, we're navigating this new life. We're thinking about coaching, we're thinking about taking a new class, we're thinking about whatever that is. We do have to take small risks without having full clarity of what it's going to look like. We do try things for the first time, like a line dancing class, like a pottery class, both of which I've done without knowing, is this going to be something I do all the time? Is it something I just do one time? We take the risk. November of 2022. I've been going to these monthly real estate investor meetings. I've been having great conversations. Everyone has just been super helpful. And the recurring mantra of people in that group is you can learn, you can study, you can try to be as prepared as possible. But at the end of the day, you have to just take action. Like just jump in. That's going to be the best way to get experience and to learn what you're actually doing in real estate. You can learn, you can try to set yourself up for success, but there's nothing like actually just doing it. So in November of 2022, I bought several duplexes. And my thought was, I don't know how to be a landlord. I don't know all the rules about evicting people if they don't make their rental payments, of dealing with problems and leaky faucets and carpet that needs to be replaced or any of those things. But I made that decision because I had my board of advisors built up. I had my resources. I had people that I could call on. I didn't know all of the answers about how to be a good landlord, but I knew I had people I could call. And so, as widows, as we're navigating grief and rebuilding our life, part of what I coach widows on is building up that board of advisors, building up that network of people that you can call on to help you make decisions or to help guide you. I had people I could call to know if I was getting quoted for some work that needed to be done, whether it was a reasonable quote. If I was having problems with someone paying their rent, what were the best next steps? I had people that were willing to help me. So I took that leap of faith, even though I was afraid and even though I didn't have experience or all of the answers. And so, as widows, as we're building up our confidence and we're building up our ability to make decisions and to actually do things, confidence comes from taking action. Confidence comes from being resourceful and having people that you can ask questions to or you can take problems to, and they can help navigate you. From November of 22 to March of 2023, I self-managed all of those duplexes and was managing the remodel of my little White House. Once I felt like I had my feet underneath me, I actually ended up hiring one of those people who I met in my very first real estate investor meeting to act as a property manager and manage the duplexes for me. As we're navigating grief, as we're rebuilding our life, it's important to understand what are the things that we can learn to delegate, what are the things that we can ask for help with, and how do we do that without feeling a lot of shame that we should be doing everything ourselves. I knew that I wanted to have a property manager to help me with just managing the properties, managing the tenants, making sure that we kept those units full, that we raised the rents according to the market, that we did all of the things in a best practice way that we could be in managing those duplexes. I didn't feel like I had to do everything all on my own. Now, some of you might catch yourself thinking right now, oh, that's great. Look at you. You bought properties, you managed them for a while, you turned it over to a property manager. Sounds like it was pretty easy to me. And my response is absolutely not. If you have done any real estate investing, if you've been a landlord, a property manager, or if you've rented an apartment or a duplex or a house from someone, things go wrong. When I first started managing these duplexes, there was a lot of overwhelm. There was a lot of uncertainty. There were quotes that we had to get things fixed and replaced. I didn't have a network of handymen and plumbers and electricians, and the network, even within my group, was somewhat limited. So even if I got a referral or recommendation, that company might be busy and not be able to get out there quickly. We might have an issue where someone's toilet stopped working or a sink got backed up or someone's HVAC system went out and I just scramble around and find someone to go out there. And like with most property management, it doesn't really happen when it's convenient. Problems with the property happen when it's the most inconvenient, when it's a holiday weekend, or when there was a big ice storm that blew through, or when you're on vacation. Some of those problems come up. So there's a lot of overwhelm and uncertainty and frustration. But just like with rebuilding your life through grief, you figure it out. You become resourceful, you take action, and that builds your confidence. The first few times you have to call a plumber or figure out who's a good plumber or who's going to be reasonable or who's going to show up on time. That's a whole other thing is people don't always show up when they say that they're going to. The first few times you do it, it is scary and intimidating. But after you've done it a few times, you're like, oh, I'm building my own network. I've got this. I can do this. Now, I am doing all of this, managing the duplexes, turning it over to a property manager while doing a tremendous remodel on my little White House. And let me tell you, when I first bought this White House, the day that we closed, we walked through the White House, the realtor and I walked through it the day that we closed. And I'm wearing my boots and jeans because that's what I like to wear. And that's what a real investor would wear. Boots and blue jeans, right? I'm walking through the house and it sounds like rain. It sounds like ice pelting the windows. That's what it sounded like. But it was on my jeans. And I'm like, what in the world is making that sound? And I looked down and there was an army of fleas that were jumping up on my jeans as I was walking through the house. It's horrible. I couldn't even be in there and try to come up with a game plan for remodeling this little White House because of the legion of fleas that were literally jumping up and attacking me on the day that I closed. I had the place treated. We ended up ripping out all the flooring. And honestly, the more we uncovered in this remodel project of the White House, the more issues just kept coming up. We replaced floor joists and wall studs that had been eaten alive by termites. We replaced Almost 100% of the drywall and the ceilings, all of the fixtures, like on the inside of this house, it is completely brand new. Pretty much everything except the exterior walls and ultimately the roof. We ended up replacing everything, the HVAC unit, just everything that you could think of. I knew it was going to be a big job. I had no idea it was going to be quite to the extent of what it actually was. I probably could have built a new house for what it cost to do this one. But I didn't beat myself up about it. I didn't look back and go, that was a really dumb decision. I was just figuring it out. It was my first one. I hired a professional company to do the remodel. I had a great experience with that contractor and his team of subcontractors. And I learned so much through that entire process that to me, I learned the value of what I ended up investing in that house. And as I was doing the remodel on that house, it just took a really long time. I let it take a long time. I spent too much money from a typical investor's standpoint. I didn't have the best of the best things put in there, but I did invest into some really nice things in that house. And so by the time it was actually done, I stepped back and looked at this house and thought, wow, I can't have spent that much on a house and on a remodel to use it as an office. I would really like to get some money back out of it so that it's not just been something I've invested a lot of money into that I'm not also getting money back out of. As an investor, I want to be making money on the money that I put in. So I have a brilliant idea. I'm going to list this little white house on Airbnb. I'd never done Airbnb. I watched a ton of videos about it. I asked other people about it. I looked at VRBO and booking.com and some of the other things. I'm like, no, I just want to keep it simple. I've been on many trips with Airbnb. That's something that I'm comfortable with. That seems to have some pretty good reviews. And so I'm going to set it up on Airbnb. I bought a checklist of things that should go in an Airbnb, and I did the best I could with what I had. It wasn't perfect, but I did the best I could with the information I had and with the skills and resources that I had. And I'm happy to share that this little white house on Airbnb has done really well. I've been really impressed and happy with it. And actually, the money that we ended up making on Airbnb for that first year, it's just now been 1 year that we've had it live and listed on Airbnb, actually ended up paying for the roof. It's paying for improvements and it's allowing me the ability to put money back into that property and back into that neighborhood, which is absolutely amazing. But as I met Robert, I was furnishing this Airbnb, and I know that he probably thinks I was crazy because I was investing all this money. I was spending hours putting furniture together. He helped me paint some of the really big bookcases. I had three large bookcases slash TV armoires that we repurposed into like a china cabinet and a coffee station and some other things. And he helped me sand and paint all of that. The mailbox needed to be fixed. That's actually one of the things we talked about on before we went on our first date. And he went and fixed that for me. And so I know in his mind, he was probably like, this lady has a lot going on. We've got these duplexes. We've got this White House that's about to go on Airbnb. We don't really know anything about that. But needless to say, I had a great experience my first year on Airbnb. And for that specific location, I have had things that I could do better that we ended up adding in over time. But I've only really had one fairly negative experience with my little white house there. And so that was great. In February of 2024, Robert and I were married. He moved into my house with me, and we ended up renting his old house out to his son. And this was a beautiful new chapter that was also a little bit scary because I knew how I set things up with my LLC and my normal rentals, how all of that was going to be set up. But when you're trying to help your child become more independent, start paying you rent, start adulting and doing things on their own. It also is a little bit different than a traditional rental agreement. So we navigated that. That's been a really good experience, and it added another rental to our overall portfolio. In June of 2024, after the White House had been live for a couple of months, we were out mowing lawns during the summer and weed eating. And so our weekends during the summer, the first year that we were married, was a lot of lawn mowing, a lot of weed eating, a lot of sweating and dying in the Arkansas heat of summer. And so I had this brilliant idea of the White House is doing really well on Airbnb. We should consider turning some of the duplexes into Airbnbs. Just think how amazing that would be. And so of June of 2024, I ended up having two duplex units that were available in the same building, and we ended up converting those to Airbnbs. Now, when you're converting these to Airbnbs, you're buying furniture, you're buying dishes, you're buying linens, you're buying mattresses, like all of the things that people would need to stay and essentially live there during the time that they're there with you. And for me, it was really exciting because I love the hospitality part of Airbnb. I love making it special for people to be there. And to me, it was a sign that we were continuing to grow and expand. And this was possibility. And this was proof that I'm doing it, right? Like I'm doing it. This is great. We're going to do more of it. And so we ended up converting those two units to Airbnb. Also, that summer, I was invited to speak to the real estate investing group that I had been a member of for the past 2 years on overcoming mindset challenges as a real estate investor. And to me, this was perfect timing. I'd been part of the group now for 2 years. I'd been a life coach for a significant amount of time, and I was able to talk about overcoming mindset challenges, overcoming fears, overcoming objections, and all of the reasons why your brain tells you can't do something or you shouldn't do something, and really how to take that leap of faith into this next chapter and this next part of your future. So this is a beautiful culmination of the growth that I had experienced. And it was a time for me to step back and go, wow, look at me. Like 2 years ago, I was terrified to walk in this room. And I shared that story as part of my presentation. Like 2 years ago, I sat in the parking lot afraid to walk in the building. I sit here today as someone who owns multiple units and as someone who is legitimately a real estate investor and who's growing and expanding and enjoying the process. So, nearly a year later, here we are. It's April of 2025. And while my White House is still doing really well on Airbnb and I'm still enjoying that process, I am not enjoying it for the duplexes that we had converted to Airbnbs. The duplexes really just aren't doing as well as we hoped they would on Airbnb. And to get them booked, we have to lower the price so much so that we invite in guests and tenants that we end up having a lot of issues. Whether it's a lack of care that they have for the property, it's physically tearing up furniture, getting dirt on the walls, like all of the horror stories. We're at about a 60% success rate on the duplexes. And unfortunately, it's not enough to justify having them as Airbnbs. We feel like they would do better as long-term rentals. So ultimately, this month, we ended up making the decision to convert them back into long-term rentals. And we actually had a really great guest that stayed with us a couple times as Airbnb guests there who said, hey, would you mind renting this as a long-term rental without it being furnished? So in less than a week, we scrambled around and sold furniture or moved furniture and dishes out of one unit into the other unit so that we could put our long-term tenant guest there who we are very happy to have there. And throughout this whole process, at first, I felt really defeated because I had envisioned that as Airbnbs, these duplexes would be great. Like they would be really good. And I had invested all of this time, this money, this sweat equity. Like furnishing an Airbnb doesn't sound like a lot, but you're investing thousands and thousands of dollars to put in furniture, to unbox all of the things, wash all the dishes, get everything set up the Keurigs. It required so many hours of my time to set these up, then to get them listed, then to create the guidebooks. There's just a lot of effort that goes into setting up Airbnbs, plus the cost of furnishing them, plus the cost of not having a long-term tenant in there. And so as I face the reality that these units are not really doing well, we need to convert them back to long term. It was disappointing because I had thought that was going to work out, but it didn't. But I didn't know at the beginning of that whether or not it was going to work out. But then I also noticed something really interesting last week when we were there meeting people to sell some of the furniture and we were getting things boxed up and organized. Was this was really the first time that I had set out to do a big project. It didn't work out the way that I thought, and I wasn't also beating myself up about it. Because the version of me that existed 2 or 3 years ago, I would have felt so much shame and embarrassment. I would have had all the thoughts like, you should have known this wasn't going to work out. See, why did you try something new for the first time? This just cost you a bunch of money, a bunch of time, a bunch of effort, and for what? For nothing, just for you to have to convert this back. Now we're going to have a loss on this unit. Now we're going to have to resell this furniture. And now we're going to have to spend a lot of time and energy unwinding these from Airbnbs, posting them back up as rentals and getting good tenants back into those units. This was a failure. You messed up. You should have known better. You should have researched better. You should have, on and on. I could have talked to myself like that. But that wasn't the constant stream of thoughts that I had in mind. The thought that I leaned into and that I chose to believe, and that was true, was that, hey, we gave it a try. It was an experiment. We tried it. It didn't work out the way that I thought it would, but it's all right. We're just going to pivot and try something else. And so, as you're navigating grief and you're rebuilding your life as a widow, you're going to have to pivot. You're going to have to change how you approach things or try things that ultimately don't work out. You don't know where, things are going to work out, and you don't know if it's going to work out the way that you even think or that you plan. But the value of coaching and the value of having a guide and someone in your corner is having someone says, it's all right, we gave it a try. Now let's pivot and let's try something differently. It's the value of knowing how to manage your mind and how to manage your thoughts so that you don't have to feel that deep shame and guilt. And you don't have to go through this process of, oh, I should have known, I should have done this, I should have done that. And why didn't I do this? And why did I think I could do this? And all of the things that just cause that deep shame. You can learn how to manage your mind and get to the point where you get to avoid all of that. Or even when those thoughts pop up, you can instantly flip a switch and say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going down the path of beating myself up. I gave it a shot. I tried it. I'm so proud of myself for actually trying because so many people don't even try. And here I am out here trying things, out here willing to do something when I'm not guaranteed that it's going to be successful. Whereas 90% of people just sit on the sidelines and don't try at all. I was willing to put myself out there and try, and so are you. As you're rebuilding your life, you're willing to put yourself out there as you try to do new things. But the amazing thing about having a coach and knowing how to manage your mind is that when these things happen, you don't have to live in regret and shame. You get to decide how you treat yourself and how you think about this experience as a whole. And lastly, as part of my real estate journey, what I want to share with you is that just last week, I was voted in as vice president of this real estate investing group. And the timing is not wasted on me at all because it's almost exactly 3 years from the date that I sat in that parking lot 3 years ago for 20 minutes, terrified to walk in that door. This is like a full circle moment from being unsure about whether or not this was something I could do, this is something I could be a part of, to being part of the leadership team that's going to grow and expand this group and that's going to improve the experience for other investors and other people interested in investing as part of this experience. It's amazing. And what I really want to make sure that you walk away with as you listen to this episode is that you aren't going to know what things are going to work out for you, what things are not going to work out for you, what life looks like on the other side of navigating this grief and learning how to rebuild your life. And that's okay. That's part of the process. It's part of becoming the type of person who steps forward in faith and says, God, I don't know what life looks like a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, but I'm going to set myself up for success in the best way possible so that I can know, even if I don't know what it looks like, it looks beautiful and abundant and amazing, and I am going to be a different person because of it. So here are a few key lessons that I really pulled out of this real estate journey that correlate to widowhood. Number one, you don't have to have all the answers. You just need to take the next step. Number two, the fear never fully goes away. Your confidence will grow with action. Number three, ask for help. Build your board of advisors. Number four, it's hard work, but it's fulfilling. Building anything meaningful after loss takes grit and heart. Five, you're allowed to pivot. Whether you're an investor going from short-term to long-term rentals, whether you're deciding to date again, whether you're deciding to move, to stay in the house that you live in, whatever it is, you're allowed to change your mind, or you're allowed to make that decision later down the road. And number six, you won't always recognize the person that you're becoming, and that's a good thing. So whether you're managing properties or managing grief, the same truth applies. Rebuilding is possible. You just have to take the first step. I didn't always know through this real estate journey exactly what I was doing, but I did it anyway, and so can you. I would love to invite you to book a one-on-one consult with me to see how my Brave Widow coaching program can help you when you're feeling stuck, when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel unsure of how to move forward. I will teach you the tools. I will equip you with the strategies that you will use the rest of your life to rebuild something beautiful and abundant and amazing. To sign up for your consult, go to bravewidow.com. If you're newly widowed and aren't sure where to start, you need the Brave New Widow Starter Kit. Inside Brave New Widow, you'll find a starter guide to help you through your first few months, a quick start guide you can share with family and friends so they know how to help you, and a collection of some of the frequent topics that widows want to learn more about. To get the Brave New Widow series, just go to bravewidow.com/start. It's free and you'll get instant access. That's bravewidow.com/start. START. See you there.